Hello, and welcome to my guide for Juggernaut. I'll be going over all three specs. I'll leave timestamps in the description for you to jump ahead if you're looking for specific things. Firstly, I'll jump into utilities, ones I find useful, however, not the ones I never use. For skillful, I'd recommend Overwhelm, Unyielding, Pathcarver, and Payback. However, for Rage, I would not take the Ravage route, which is Overwhelm, as you can only use it every 15 seconds, I believe. But that's with Abundance of Alacrity, which I currently run. So I don't find it that useful. However, in Vengeance, it's somewhat good because you can chain 2 Ravages back to back, meaning 6 seconds of route. I only take Payback and Rage because extra healing is useful, plus the CC break. Time reduction. However, for Vengeance, I feel like it's not so useful, as having Pathcarver and Ravage route is a little bit more. And I always take Unyielding. For Masterful, I would recommend Pooled Hatred, Crushing Fist, Sonic Wall, Unshackling Rage. However, I would not recommend Crushing Fist and Sonic Wall if you're not a team player. I've rarely used Unstoppable, but you could take it. I know a lot of people like to. I don't take it just because it feeds Rage into Unyielding, and honestly, getting pushed is not that big of a deal. Against a sniper, maybe, but I don't know. With the Intercede, Root Break, and getting free Rage for it, it's not a problem for me. The Pooled Hatred was recently fixed with Vengeance, so it's definitely a good utility to take as Vengeance now. For Heroic, I would take Warbringer, Through Passion, and Through Power. Since this is new, Ardent Defense used to be Whiplash. Since that's no longer a thing, I always just take these 3. I don't take this sometimes when I'm taking 3 in the first tree. If I'm not taking 3 in the first tree, I will take 3 here. Or I'll just take these 2. But Warbringer is great for both DPS specs, because Hew is one of your heaviest damaging abilities. Vicious Throw is also very strong in Rage, and it should be used with pretty much every leap. This is the only way to get it to proc 2 at like max health, which is great. Then Legendary, I would recommend Piercing Chill and Reckoning. Sadly, used to be Thrown Gauntlet. Now they've changed Thrown Gauntlet, which is weird, but whatever. So basically you would take Reckoning for the additional damage reduction and the Intercede cooldown reduction, not for the 20% damage for the next melee ability. That's really, really tiny. I don't think people really notice that. And then sometimes I would take Intimidating Presence or Saber Reflect, giving you 2 more seconds, which is great when you're getting tunneled, but it's not 100% more worth it than Piercing Chill or Reckoning. Next, I'll go over Rage as a whole. I've covered all the utilities. Alright, now to go over Rage. This specialization is similar to Fury, but has more abilities and a different order of abilities. Key things to note from the tree: as Rage is Intercede cleanses roots, to be seen at level 52. Brutality, you'd like to read it for yourself. Cascading Power is 5% damage after using Raging Burst or Smash. This is called Cascading Power, level 40. And Rage and Force Crush give Shockwave, which gives 15% damage for Smash or Raging Burst. It also reduces cooldown for Enrage by 15 seconds. And you also get additional 6 Rage over 6 seconds when used. So with Alacrity, your enrage gets down pretty low, as if you can see. My enrage is 25 seconds currently, 25.6 seconds. It's a very short cooldown, and it works very well with Unshackling Rage because it gives you movement speed. It's a very nice utility, plus, obviously great for rage management. The fact that Alacrity works with it is great, as you can constantly keep up a rotation without really having to try to build rage. And then lastly, there is Furious Strike. Furious Strike enables retaliation and also beats down the target for 45 seconds. Beat down targets take 5% more damage from melee attacks. This is great. I only use retaliation just because it fits fluidly within the rotation. It's definitely ideal to use first on tanks because it cannot be missed. Also in Rage, you do not get the global or off the global cooldown version. Only tank does, sadly. Now for utilities for Rage, I would take these currently that I'm taking right now. Unyielding, you generate 4 Rage when stunned, immobilized, or put to sleep or knocked around. Pathcarver, which deals 25% extra damage while you use Sleeping Slash. Should be this. Do not take this if you don't have many AoE chances. Rage is still very, very good single target damage wise. I'll actually post a video in the what are those things? I think they're called annotations or whatever. Hopefully somebody knows what I'm talking about, and I'll show a clip. Like pretty much all single target. I think I might have Sleeping Slash maybe once or twice, and still did 7.2k. It was a really good game, and I take payback for the time reduction on the CC. As I don't know, I feel like it's more important than taking other things. Then I take Pooled Hatred and Unshackling Rage. I don't see any use for the others. However, there is use. Just as Rage, I don't feel like there is. Through Passion and Warbringer, take Warbringer because it really helps you burst, at least your opener burst. Then you can jump on somebody. Raging Burst, Vicious Throw, Furious Strike, Retaliation, Force Scream. It's a good chunk of damage. And also it's the only way to get it to proc without them being under 30% health. Then lastly, for Legendary, I'll take Piercing Chill. And pretty much nothing else. If I was to take out Pathcarver, I would probably put it in Through Power. And then maybe, if I really feel like it, I might put it into Through Victory. But obviously, if you prefer to take different utilities, they're completely fine. I can't say any of them are really bad, except for maybe Seething Hatred. Like the time that it takes to kill somebody anymore, you're never getting the use out of Seething Hatred anymore. Consuming Rage is great for PvE, but this is not PvE. Hardening Defense, just... I don't know why they did this. It should have just stayed, and should have stayed like baseline. Strangulate. All these, like some of these, you can just read for yourself, and you can determine whether you actually think they're worth it or not. I think a lot of people actually end up taking Warmonger and Deadly Reprisal. I don't ever take these. So I might take this in as a tank. But I would never take them any other way because Unyielding just outperforms them so much. Now for rotation, I would say it's very versatile and fun, in my opinion. If you're a chaotic player and struggle following any sort of rotation, Rage would be really good for you. All you need to know is that Furious Strike will beat down the target. Raging Burst should be used before Furious Strike. Try to use every Raging Burst with a Shock Wave via Force Crush or Enrage for maximum damage. I will demonstrate a rotation to give an idea of burst opener. However, I'll also show a clip of a game where I played Rage recently to see how it performs. In a said video, I had not played Rage since 4.0 or something like that, and I was pretty rusty at it. I kept using Furious Strike before Raging Burst multiple times on accident. However, still doing great, providing how chaotic the spec is and how well it can do. I would give no priority to this spec. It's more so you use this when you need it, but it'll it's kind of self-explanatory. I will say you want to have these abilities always on cooldown: Force Crush, Fierce Strike, and Raging Burst, and Obliterate, and also you're Enrage, mostly because of the movement speed and the Purge for roots. But you might want to save it sometimes unless you really need the Rage. I will show you a rotation clip, and then I will go into Vengeance. Now to cover Vengeance. This is my more played spec, as I enjoy how smooth it is to play. Utilities I'd take for Vengeance. Skillful I would take Overwhelm, Path Carver, and Unyielding. Possibly Payback for Unranked. The extra health, but honestly you're probably gonna die either way. Masterful I would take Pooled Hatred. They have recently fixed it for Vengeance and the way it works with dots. To give you tips for how to use this, you can sit in things like Oil Slick or Saboteur / Engineering's Plasma Probe thing. You stand in there, you can see the stacks that'll show up right around here, wherever you have your player buff thing. And you can sit in there and, maybe impel somebody for extra big hit. But, however, it is kind of wasteful because you have to wait like 5 global cooldowns for a max stack, but it is there. It is something you could use if you really want to. Then I would take Unshackling Rage, as it is great for movement speed, purging movement effects, and the extra rage that it gives you. Then I would possibly take Crushing Fist if you felt like being a team player. Supply Sunder to everybody by using Vengeance. Or Vengeful Slam, my bad. Maybe Sonic Wall too if you feel like being a team player. Then for Heroic, I'd take Warbringer. It's one of your main damage abilities, and Vengeance, which is Hew. And also procs quite a bit, so there's a high chance that you'll be able to jump to somebody, put a dot, jump to somebody, Hew, then put a dot, then Hew again. Then I would take Through Passion and Through Power. However, I'm not taking Through Power because I am taking Ravage Root. If I was to not take Ravage Root, I would take Through Power for the movement speed and the immunity. Then for legendary, I only take Piercing Chill, as I don't feel like any of these others are worth it. I would take another one, but no, I just see no reason in Vengeance to take anything else. Unless I was taking Through Power or Crushing Fist. Now, things to know about the Vengeance tree before I go into any other things is that Impel implies beat down to target. If I can find it real quick. One of these. This one right here. Impel causes the target to bleed for 2,527 internal damage over 6 seconds. Beats down the target for 45 seconds. Beat down targets take 5% more damage from melee attacks. Impel and Force Scream are 8-second dots. Piercing Chill is 6 seconds. And Shatter is 12 seconds. Ravage gains 5% damage for each of the Vengeance specific dots on the target, which, to avoid confusion, Piercing Chill is not a Vengeance specific dot. This can stack up to 15% since Shatter resets Ravage. There will always be one underpowered Ravage, sadly. Lastly, Brawn. This gives immunity to interrupts. I believe it's right there, yep. And stuns and incapacitating effects for 4 seconds. However, it does not stop pushes or pulls. I feel like a lot of people overlook this, and there's no channeled abilities as Ravage is no longer a channel. It probably should be changed, but however, if you're a objective player and you're playing a Destin by chance, this means you can jump to somebody on the node and use the deactivation, and you'll be uninterruptible for 4 seconds. And there's a high chance that somebody will try to interrupt you within those 4 seconds to not be able to. The only way you would actually be interrupted is somebody knocked you off. So you might be able to get it off, like, more often than other people. Now for the rotation, it's a bit weird, and sometimes you have to make judgment calls. Since 2 of the dots are pretty short in duration, there are 2 different rotations of setting up dots. One where you'll have time to spread and get a full Ravage damage, but also have an underpowered Ravage at first. Then there's one where you'd have a 2.5 or 2/3 power Ravage, then a full power Ravage with some time left to dot spread. One obviously is better for spreading reliably, and one is better for single target damage. I'll play a clip of the ideal opener. There are also great AoE options, being the double empowered Sleeping Slash, 25% from the utility, and 25% from the tree, letting you hit 10k Sleeping Slashes on people affected by your Vengeance specific dots, which is really, really good. It's great filler. I will show a video clip of that, and then I will get into Immortal. Now, the last spec to go over, Immortal. very touchy with this one because I see every new player just play tank because they don't really know what they're doing. I'm not saying that's wrong or they should play the game the way I say, but since I'm opinionated about Immortal and tanks in general, I will give a fair warning. Feel free to discard my advice if you wish on this spec. However, I do play this and you may learn something. I'm also a bit more passionate about this. I suspect it's one of my favorites. There's also a lot to it since Immortal is separate from the other two specs. Gearing wise, I'll go over it first. There are 3 different ways you can gear: endurance heavy, DPS gear, or mitigation gear. I recommend in between endurance heavy and DPS gear. What I mean by that, for the first 2 is tank armorings and DPS mods and enhancements, or endurance heavy, DPS mods and enhancements. For endurance heavy setup, sadly there are no 248 versions of the endurance heavy mods or enhancements, so you'll have to take the crafted 246s. For mitigation, I can't give any advice as I don't play tank extremely often, so I see having mitigation gear set up too much of a time sink. However, for endurance heavy or DPS setup, you want around 760 alacrity to 1850, then around 1700 critical. If you're going HP heavy, take endurance augs. If you're going DPS, it can afford more stat points, dump into power until you can hit over 1850 alacrity, which reaches 1.3 seconds global cooldown. If you can't afford that, stick to power. Way to see if your global cooldown is at 1.3 seconds, just look at choke. Well, I guess you can't look at choke in Immortal because it's not channeled. Basically, you can just respec into a different spec and look at choke. If it says channeled 1.3 seconds, if 0, then that means it's 1.3 second global cooldown. However, if it's any higher, it'll round up to 1.4. If it's like 1.29, then you have 1.3 second global cooldown. Now to get some important things from the tree, first thing I want to mention is that being in tank form, you gain 10% accuracy but lose 10% damage. You also get free tank stats. Sweeping slash applies trauma. If your guarded target gets hit, you gain movement speed. Crushing blow applies impaired, making the target do 5% less damage and force. Less damage with force and tech attacks. It also procs retaliation, the off global cooldown version only for Immortal. The retaliation gives you 5% defense chance for 10 seconds. Force Scream will give you a sonic barrier that will absorb a moderate amount of damage for 10 seconds. Intimidating Roar will make targets do 15% less melee and range damage for 10 seconds after the paralyzing effect is over. Even if they can't be messed, it'll still just happen immediately. Using Ravage will give you a 6% defense chance per tick, which will give you 2% per tick. Also, Smash and Sweeping Slash apply unsteady, making targets hit with it lose 5% accuracy. For utilities, I'd take and go full Unyielding, Path Carver, and maybe Deadly Reprisal. Masterful, I'd take Crushing Fist, Sonic Wall, Encircling Rage, and possibly Pooled Hatred. If you're playing a cleave setup, you can decide whether you want to focus more on damage or tanking. If you're not the best at DPS, I would recommend staying to Crushing Fist and Sonic Wall, and maybe taking an Encircling Rage just for self-peeling. Being able to help the team more is important, but if your team is lacking damage, then it's you should definitely take Pooled Hatred. Usually, if I ever play tank, I'm probably solo queuing. So this is what I will actually take because I'll be a mixture of protecting people and doing damage. And for heroic, I would take through passion. Sadly, I wouldn't take any of the other ones because I don't feel like they're useful for a tank. Maybe through power for help kiting, but honestly, as a tank, you probably shouldn't be kiting. I mean, if it's an arena and you're trying to avoid dying, then that's understandable, but for Rex, it's just, you can still apply debuffs to other people, die, and still, be a help or contribute to your team. For legendary, I would take Reckoning, as what Thrown Gauntlet used to be is now Reckoning. Plus it gives you 20% melee damage for the next ability, which is cool, I guess. It's not the reason I took it. It's the Intercede cooldown reduction and the extra damage reduction for the target that gets interceded to. And then I would take Piercing Chill just for the AoE slow plus the 35% movement speed, and the dot just happens to be, a bonus. Now it's rotation. Since this is tanking in PvP, this is very hectic, and you should be more focused on protecting and finding groups to AoE smash, to apply unsteady and crushing blow to apply impaired, or sweeping slash to apply impaired. For any priority target to do it too, you'll want to put retaliation in a nice spot, as you will want to spam it for every time it goes off of cooldown. It's off the global cooldown, so there's no reason to not always have it on the cooldown. If you have time to DPS, you want to apply debuffs first, then get into sweeping slash spam as it's AoE trauma. However, try not to do this too much on a single target, because there's just better abilities or better things you could be doing instead of just DPSing one person. Now, for what you're doing when you're not applying something or being tank tunneled, you should be looking at targets taking damage and interceding to them, taunting high priority targets that do good damage, swapping if anyone, or guard swapping if anyone gets below 50%. Don't be too quick with guard swapping unless it's really a good team. Also stay with your guarded target, otherwise it's completely useless. Guard before you intercede if it's needed. If you're playing with a healer, then you should focus target them. Set up the focus target modifier so you can intercede to them without targeting them. And what I mean by that is, I'll actually show you, because I understand that some of the newer players may not know what I'm talking about. Alright, so when you set up a focus target, you can look at somebody. Since it's myself, I cannot do that. If there was somebody else, I would hit Control F. Oh, well, I guess I can do it to myself. Alright, so I'm now my focus target. So my focus target is set here. It'll show up wherever you have it. You might have to go in the interface editor if you've never used it and enable it. Set this to a bind that doesn't conflict with any of your other ones, because you'll want to get used to using it. I like Control F because that's pretty much the base default one that I've had it on for a long time. I believe the basic default might be Alt F for everybody else. And then there's a target multiplier, focus target modifier. If I can speak English, I am trying my best. I used to have this on Shift F, but since I've changed my binds a little bit, I've moved it to Shift Z. So when I hold Shift Z, I'll show you real quick, since you now know what it is. See how my abilities glow and then they don't glow because I'm targeting myself? When you hold Shift Z, then I could use another shift combination like Shift S or Shift D to intercede or guard myself. This will work with other abilities, but it will only work with shift combinations. If you put your focus target modifier on a shift combination, that is. So if you don't put it on a shift combination, you should be able to use the regular ones. So, like, see how I can still mad dash, but I'm still focusing myself. It's very useful. I would definitely recommend setting it up if you haven't done it yet. I have to find back to where I was. The main thing you want to do while you're doing that is not to make conflicting binds. If you make conflicting binds, you'll probably be standing still doing nothing and wondering why nothing's happening. So I'd highly recommend testing this in like a safe environment first. Otherwise, you'll just look stupid. But there's no problem with that, to be honest. As ending note for Immortal, since it's the tank spec, it's going to have better survivability only if played right. Try not to waste things to be a solo hero unless you have to. Like if you're running in a hut ball, then I can understand you using your abilities like wastefully to just score. I guess it's not wastefully if you're scoring. You also want to make sure that you do not overlap your DCDs. As Immortals, defensive cooldowns are way better than others, the DPS specs. The only time it's susceptible to use more than one defensive cooldown would be why you're using Enraged Defense, in my opinion, as Enraged Defense healing is very mediocre at best. So using things like maybe Reflect or Saber Ward while you're healing to reduce the incoming damage so your healing doesn't get completely negated. Immortal is definitely the peak of using your defensive cooldowns correctly. Like for example, using a Reflect against a Carnage Marauder, it's most likely going to be a waste as they do primarily white damage and not yellow. The only thing the Reflect will stop is Devastating Blast, so it'd be like completely a waste and they'd still be able to lay in on you without having to worry at all. What you should use Reflect on, last few seconds of Brazen Bolts to possibly catch a Heat Seeker right after to reflect it back, or while ambushes are being channeled on you. Sometimes they'll either cancel it or, get it reflected. I would definitely recommend try to keep the Reflect for heavy hitting yellow abilities or channeled abilities. Saber Ward is extremely buffed in Immortal, giving you an immense defense chance, 100% for the first few seconds with a base 50%. So that's 150% for the first few seconds, then 50% for the rest of the duration. It also reduces force attacks by 25%. Invincible reduces damage by 40% for 10 seconds. This is probably your best defensive cooldown as it's global for all damage taken. Definitely want to use it while you're taking a lot of damage from all different people. Intimidating Roar should be used for when you're in trouble or whoever you're trying to save is in trouble. It is more of an offensive cooldown, but it also helps survivability. If you can upkeep doing damage while under focus, applying Crushing Blow and Smash to many targets as you can, upkeep Aegis, upkeep Retaliation, and upkeep Force Scream. All three of these abilities give defensive buffs. Now for Gearing as a whole, just give me a second to switch back to DPS gear, since I have gone over Immortal already. Gear swap for me are pretty simple. I didn't waste a stem there, but I guess it doesn't matter. This is what I take for both Vengeance and Rage. I've taken this on a lot of my white damage dealers just because it's what I prefer. It's a 1.3 second global cooldown. I will show you that after I get out Mortal. As you see right there, channeled 1.28 seconds, 17% alacrity flat. It's very good. I don't really see the use for having more power or mastery. The extra critical doesn't really make a difference. The accuracy is very important. I think if I was to ever drop some of my alacrity, it'd be going into accuracy. Or maybe hitting up to 2k power, or not 2k power, but 2k critical at max. 10% accuracy is completely viable. I think 8% is like where you start not noticing anything. Between like 7 to 10%, I don't think the difference is like anything in PvP unless you're getting hit by like tank debuffs. Depending on what you can afford in gear tiers, I would recommend anywhere from 1660 critical to 1750. And then I would recommend 1850 plus alacrity. I only recommend to try to achieve this once you have enough gearing to actually get over that. If you can come close, it doesn't count. It has to be over it. You also don't want to give up your critical rating or your accuracy rating to reach that. So keep in mind of that. And if you can't reach it, it's fine. Just run 760 to 900 and put everything else in power for the time being, as power augments are really cheap and they're also not that bad. I'm also in all 248s here, I believe. I don't have anything else. The new augments don't really change anything for this. I mean, I'll go up to, I believe, 300 or 3200 power with the new augments, and I'll gain about 20 alacrity, which is great. Yes, it's not a huge change. That's all I can say. I might hit 2500 bonus damage, which is cool. But this is what you should probably expect to see if you want to copy what I'm running. There's a lot of other viable setups. As I said, I just mentioned what I think is useful. I'll leave a guide for my Marauder and the text guide where I go over stats a little bit more in depth, and you can see why I go what I do. I feel like you'll find that somewhat useful if you're looking into what you should gear and how you should gear, and whether if you're going to be doing PvE and PvP. It's completely fine to just, swap out one accuracy enhancement or whatever and be lazy. Last thing I'll go over for Juggernaut would be ideal targets. Who should you go for? Ideally, you'll want to bully Sorks, mainly DPS Sorks. They have a lot of slows and no real defensive cooldowns to prevent you from hitting big on them. Take advantage of it to build Pooled Hatred stacks on them. Otherwise, for Vengeance, just take whoever you can. It doesn't have a cleansing mechanic for your dots, like Shroud, so you can reliably dot spread. Targets I wouldn't recommend trying to dot spread on would be Sniper, Operative, PT, DPS, and Sen. For Immortal, just take what you can get unless you're cleaving. Go for the Sork for crushing blows if no other target is available to go for, or you can't get to them without leaving your protect target. Just take whoever you can. Hopefully you've taken something from this guide and you understood me somewhat clearly. This is my second video guide I've spoken on. I'm not the best at it, but I hope to improve. If you have any information I have forgotten or something else, feel free to leave a comment. I'm happy to help or talk about something I may have missed or messed up on to prevent any misinformation. That's really the last thing for this video. If you liked the video, please vote on the poll in the top right, which I believe it's called annotations. If you like my content, I do stream, so feel free to follow me there. I also have a Twitter for you guys to know when I go live or post things related only what I play. Also, I have my messages open, so if you ever wanted to say something or ask something, I'm available there too. I'll leave the links in the descriptions. And as always, thanks for watching.